This is Akashvani, Bengaluru. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Yuvavani. I am Jyoti Das. Today I am accompanied by Shloak Vatsal, student at IISc Bangalore. Shloak here, a research scientist in the making, is going to give us a peek into the research scene of our country today. Welcome, Shloak. I'd like to begin by asking you the meaning of iGEM. You mentioned that you're on iGEM team at IISc. What does that mean?
iGEM stands for the International Genetically Engineered Machine. It's an international collaboration where multiple teams from across the world participate and prepare projects in synthetic biology that can solve real-world problems. IISc has been participating in iGEM for the last 6 years and we have won 5 gold medals there. This year, we are working to find a solution to a disease called endometriosis. Endometriosis is a disease which 1 in 10 women worldwide suffer from. So it amounts to a total of 247 million women worldwide. We are trying to make a solution using mRNA. When you go into the cell, DNA gets converted into mRNA and then it gets converted into protein. We saw the use of mRNA in the recent COVID pandemic when vaccines were made using this technology. Recently, the Nobel Prize that has been awarded in medicine was also for this technology itself. This can solve the problem of endometriosis to a large extent and will also bring down the cost of the treatment, which is limited because of surgery at this moment.
Let's talk about synthetic biology. That is your field of research, right?
Synthetic biology is the intersection of engineering and biology. Just like in engineering, we make circuits to be inserted inside computers, let's say. Here we make genetic circuits that can be inserted inside bacteria, mammalian cell, all these living organisms which can then do our functions for us. It has wide-ranged application. It is used in biomanufacturing, bioremediation, therapeutics. You must have heard about insulin production, how artificially it is produced. So initially, we are producing insulin inside pigs, horses, and then we take it out of their pancreas. So this is not just a very inhumane process, it was quite costly too. So you will see before 1970s, 80s, the cost of artificial insulin was quite high. Then scientists discovered a process through which insulin could be produced inside microorganisms. This helped in bringing down the cost of insulin, producing it in very large amounts, and this has helped humanity in general. Bioremediation. So climate change is a major driver of science in today's world. We see huge sums of money being invested in greener options, as we call them. Bioremediation is basically removal of pollutants from the nature. Damage that has already been done has to be repaired. We program bacteria or smaller organisms, which we then release into these water bodies, water treatment plants, where they remove these pollutants. Therapeutics. We see diseases like cancer, tumors that have not been treated for very long. We are researching, we are finding new solutions, but none of them have been very effective in treating these diseases. So we have tried to find newer solutions. As I mentioned, our team is working on endometriosis. Surgery is at this point the only solution, and that too is not very effective because recurrence is high. So these are some diseases that can be solved through synthetic biology. So these are the new things that are being developed. We have to be prepared for new challenges that are coming up.
How does synthetic biology work? How do you circuit the cells?
It starts with a small circular DNA that can replicate independently of the cell. This is then inserted into cells where they replicate independently and do our functions. It contains various parts such as a promoter, an antibiotic resistance gene, and restriction sites. You must have heard about antibiotic resistance in a very negative context, where because of the overuse of antibiotics, these are becoming ineffective towards microorganisms. But here we are purposefully giving antibiotic resistance to the bacteria or to the cell we are performing our experiment on. Why is this so? Because our cell, the one that we have modified, is not just performing its own live functions, it is also performing an extra activity that we want it to do. So it is also spending its resources for us. Now, if it wants to compete with some natural bacteria, it will be at a disadvantage. So we give it an extra advantage where this antibiotic resistance helps it to grow. I also mentioned restriction enzymes. These are basically molecular scissors. They help in cutting DNA at certain parts and then joining them using another enzyme called DNA ligase. When we cut something with a scissor and then try to paste it with sellotape, let's say, there are some holes, some gaps, and it is not like the old thing. So to standardize this, to make this conjugation effective, what we do is develop a biobrick. Biobrick, as the name suggests, is like a Lego DNA. Just like Lego pieces can be topped on each other, fitting perfectly, these biobricks fit perfectly into each other. This is a very new development that has come in this field, and iGEM that we are working on contributes significantly to the registry of these biobrick parts. It is similar to an electrical circuit. So the final goal that we can think of synthetic biology should be to make it as easy as fitting a battery inside two terminals of a circuit. Biobricks ensure that because we have the terminals, we have what we call DNA parts that can be considered as a battery. We just keep it inside and it starts working. So this is how synthetic biology works.
How did you get into research, Shloak? When did you decide that it's research you want to get into?
I'm an undergraduate student. Basically, all of us have that curiosity inside of us to find solutions to things that are happening around us, to understand the phenomena. To quench that curiosity itself, I feel that was the first major reason why I entered into this field. Apart from it, science also provided a flexibility that I feel the other fields do not provide. For example, when we take any other field apart from research, we are limited by what we have graduated in or what working hours we have. Though in science, we can change the questions we are pondering on, we can explore new fields a lot. So I think that is one of the major reasons I chose research as a field.
Are you happy in this field and would you want to continue it as your life career?
Yes, as I said, research gives me a lot of flexibility. So for now, whatever career path I want to choose, I can later. Research gives you a satisfaction of solving real world problems. Especially when you find the solution, it gives you a different kind of pleasure that this is something that you have achieved.
Do you think that our country is providing enough for research scientists?
Yes and no. Basically, we have institutions in the country that are conducting world-class research. Though the curriculum that the country is following at the moment, especially in the BSc and MSc courses, this is the system that we've been following for many decades now. The world has moved on. We need to focus more on research. A good thing that I feel is being done now is the new education policy. It focuses more on the research aspects. Even in school level, they are trying to change the curriculum to include more of experiments, practicals.
Now let's delve further into what you do. How is a research undertaken?
Often when science is being communicated about, we see it as a series of random discoveries, eureka moments. But in today's world, I feel research needs years of patience and dedicated hard work by hundreds of scientists around the world. There are eureka moments, no doubt, but even to achieve them, you need to have the right tools. It's not enough to be at the right time, at the right place. You need to have those tools to find something significant. Science basically involves various steps, what we call the scientific method. It starts by observing stuff around us, questioning how stuff are working around us, trying to do some background research, trying to find some solutions of why things are happening the way they are, forming hypotheses. There's a very important thing that we should be able to negate the hypothesis. It's not enough to give a theory that is working. We should be able to prove that it is working or prove evidently that it is not. Both the things are equally important. Conducting experiments and analyzing the data that we are getting from there, drawing up conclusions and then communicating it to the world. It may be possible that the hypothesis that we had given initially was false, but it is a good opportunity to ask more questions. Why did the hypothesis go wrong? Where was my initial experiment wrong or falsifiable? These are the new aspects that open up even if the hypothesis goes wrong.
What would you say to today's youth who are waiting to decide a career path?
Most of us on our team right now are undergraduates. So we too had this choice a few years back. We chose research because it, as I mentioned, helped us quench the curiosity that we have. And though the career paths of engineering and medical have been traditionally established, but I feel research too has a lot of potential in today's times. Especially if you like observing stuff, if you like questioning stuff, if you want to go deeper into anything, then it is a good idea to pursue research. You can pursue research even if you are undertaking engineering or medical, but time becomes constrained. Your studies become constrained because of the course that you are undertaking. If you want freedom, if you want more flexibility in your studies, then science should be the way to go.
And how do you see the future of research in our country? You mentioned that it is not yet world class. Do you see it getting there?
Yes, science, we can see its applications everywhere in today's times. We have seen Chandrayaan 3's recent success. The Gaganyaan mission is trying to send Indians to space. Similarly, we have seen the pharmaceutical industry performing very well during the COVID pandemic. We have supplied vaccines to the entire world. So, science is evolving and our country is preparing itself to embrace the new revolution. And with time, I feel, yes, we are on the right path to catch up with the rest of the world and outperform them.
Would you explain on what changes have happened, either in terms of aid given by the government or in terms of changes that have happened in the institutes itself, by which you feel so positive about the research scene in the country?
New education policy focuses on experimental based learning, application based learning. So, science is now expanding to the colleges or to the programs where it was not available before. Let's say, initially, as I mentioned, the BSc MSc degrees were offered in universities in the country. But recently, more research based programs, BSMS, BS programs have been started in multiple institutes. These programs will help bringing forward the research aspect of science. We also saw recently the announcement of a new prize called the Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar. So these are the steps that I feel will help in encouraging new scientists to take up this field. I qualified for an examination called Kishore Vaigyanik Protsahan Yojana. It has now been merged with the Inspire scheme of the government. KVPY basically offered scholarship to anyone pursuing courses in pure science and research. This includes the basic sciences field, this also includes mathematics, and this also includes some engineering fields where research is being taken up. These programs for sure encourage students to take up these courses. Also, these are now offered to students irrespective of whether they clear an examination or not based on the research that they are undertaking. Look out for these examinations called IAT, called the ISER Aptitude Test. And there is one more exam called NEST, National Entrance Cum Scholarship Test. These examinations allow you to enter into the premier research institutes of the country. And once you are there, the fees too is quite minimal. And that too is covered through the scholarship programs that the government is applying there.
Could you give some tips to aspiring scientists?
The scientific process starts with observation and curiosity. You should be curious like a child. Question everything around you. Observation is one of the most important skills that any researcher should have. Apart from it, you should be able to read. Read as much as you can. Proper scientific papers. This will be quite tough initially. But as time progresses, what you can do is find further resources for the old doubts that you have. This becomes a very virtuous cycle where you go on finding resources on your own that can be utilized for these stuff.
Thank you, Shloak. It was a pleasure having you on the show. We now know that we're all set to change the narrative and establish ourselves as a place of premium research. I hope the youngsters take note. I, Jyoti Das, now sign off. This is Yuvavani, and our guest tonight was Shloak Vatsal, student at IISc Bangalore. This program was brought to you by Akashvani, Bengaluru.